what is earnest money? This question we get all the time, and we're going to break it down for you. So earnest money acts as a form of security for the seller. It's basically showing them how interested you are in the property. And it also helps compensate the seller should you fail on your obligations that you put into the contract. So it's kind of that covering their risk should you not fulfill the contract and you leave them with all their stuff left in the moving truck and the deal not closed, they would then get your earnest money. As far as the amount of earnest money we typically see on transactions, most of them are right around 1% of the purchase price. So $500,000 house, you're about $5,000. But I've seen earnest money amounts like over $100,000. So it just depends on the property. The higher the purchase price, the more earnest money that you're going to see there. And then you got to keep in mind, earnest money is tying both buyer and seller together. So should the buyer default after all their deadlines, the seller would get the buyer's earnest money, say it's $5,000. But should the seller default, the seller's also obligated by the same earnest money amount. So let's say the seller backs out close to closing, the buyer would then be entitled to an equal sum of the earnest money amount if they wanted to pursue that route. The deposit process, after an offer is accepted, the buyer has 4 days to get the earnest money delivered to their agent. And then the agent has an additional 4 days to get it deposited into the trust account. So if you go under contract on a Monday, you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get your earnest money to the agent. That can be in the form of a wire or a personal check. We cannot do cash, unfortunately. And then the funds are held into an escrow account. So at our brokerage, we have a non-interest bearing trust account that's regulated very heavily. The funds go in there and then they just sit there until closing. At closing, those funds are then transferred to the title company and they are used for your down payment or part of your closing costs. And so it just gets wrapped into the deal. So the earnest money is fully refundable as long as you're staying within your contractual deadlines of the contract. Should you back out for due diligence reasons within the due diligence deadline, you would get your earnest money back. Or for financing reasons within the financing and appraisal deadline, you would get your earnest money back. However, should you go past all of your contingency periods and then back out, then that earnest money would be due to the seller for liquidated damages and for time loss on the market, etc. That rarely happens. We'll keep you informed of the contract deadlines and where things are at. But just keep in mind that that earnest money is there as a form of security for the seller and for the buyer. The seller's bound by the equal amount. And then that earnest money is just used towards your closing costs or down payment.